Hi boys and girls, how are y'all doing? I'm so glad you're here today. And I know last week was kind of crazy with all the storms and trying to let everybody get their internet back on. But we're going to get back on schedule this week and back to work. I wanted to congratulate you guys. Something you may not know is that you have covered every new math standard for 3rd grade. That means everything new that you were supposed to be introduced to in math, you have learned, okay? That doesn't mean we're finished though. What that means is now we will back up and we'll be going back over some of the skills that need more practice, okay? Some of those skills that we introduced but maybe we haven't mastered means we just need to kind of get a little bit better at it, be able to manipulate it a little bit more, and be able to work through some of the problems without being so nervous and being more confident in ourselves, okay? So what we're going to be going over this week, what we're going to be re-studying is going to be fractions, okay? And some of you did really well in fractions, but I want us to be a little bit more confident, okay, working through fractions. Seemed like that was one of the things that we just weren't sure you guys would know what to do, but you just weren't confident doing it. And in 4th grade, you're gonna continue working with fractions a good bit. And it's kind of like building a really good foundation, okay? If I have a contractor come to build me a new house, I'm not going to build it in sand. I'm going to make sure I've got a really steady, firm foundation, okay? And I want you, when you go to 4th grade, to have a really firm foundation so that you can dig a little bit deeper in 4th grade with these fractions and get a little bit more familiar with different things that we haven't gotten to study yet, okay? So first thing you got to know is, what is a fraction? A fraction is just equal pieces of a whole. It's where we take something like a piece of pizza and we divide it up. Now, it can't be where someone gets a piece like this and someone else gets a piece like this. All pieces, all portions have to be equal. Each unit fraction. Remember, a unit is where it's one piece. Okay, so each unit fraction has to be the same as the next piece. Okay, so a fraction is equal pieces of a whole. Now, 2 things make up a fraction, okay? We have our numerator and we have our denominator. The numerator is the top number. That's how many pieces we're talking about that are in the whole. And then our denominator down here, that bottom number, is how many pieces they've divided it up into. Okay, so how many pieces of the whole there are. So for example, let me show you a picture so you can understand it a little bit better. Right here I have 2 objects that I have divided up into fractions, okay? So let's look at our square first, okay? Now, remember, our denominator is always the bottom number. I think it was Gianna was talking to me one day during a lesson, and I said, you know, the bottom number, you can think of down. Okay, if you're having a hard time remembering, you can think of down for the bottom number. And she said, and for the top, you can think of not down for numerator. So denominator, down. Numerator, not down. It's going to be the top one. So remember, our denominator is how many pieces it's been divided into. Okay, so how many pieces make up this whole? It's going to be 4. And then I have shaded how many pieces? 1. Okay, and let's do the same thing for our circle down here. I'm going to let you count that out and see how many pieces we've divided that into to give us our denominator, or our bottom number. And that is 8. And how many pieces have been shaded? 2. Okay, so that should be pretty simple. This should be kind of reviewing stuff that was pretty easy for us. Let me set this to the side. Now today we're going to be doing an activity together, okay? I'm not going to work through a lesson, but we're going to do something where we build something called a unit fraction kit, okay? So what I want you to do is make sure you've got these supplies before you continue, okay? So if you need to pause this when I show you what all you need, you can pause it, and then we'll pick back up and go together through what we're building. You're going to need something to write with, and I'm going to use my Expo marker. You're going to need at least 4 sheets of paper. Now, I like having colored paper around the house. Lily Grace likes to do crafts. I keep construction paper around. So I have different colors, and it's going to make it a little bit more fun, and it'll be easier to kind of identify what we're making. So I have different colored paper. If you have different colored paper, that's what I'm going to recommend you use, okay? If you don't, that's okay. Get you some notebook paper, or if you have a printer in the house of just plain white paper, copy paper, you can use that. Anything will work. It's just, this will be a little bit easier to kind of show you what you're, what I'm wanting you to see. Okay. So there's my paper I'm going to be using. I'm going to set that down. Alright, we are going to be using scissors. I want you to make sure with an adult, whoever you live with, that it is okay for you to use scissors before you use them, okay? Even if you're allowed to use them anytime, I want you to go to your parents and say, Miss Walker has me making a craft online, and she's told me to let you know that I'm fixing to be using scissors, okay? And I know you guys are awesome with them. I just want to make sure that someone in the house knows you're going to be doing some crafting stuff, okay? And then another thing you're going to need is a ruler. Now, you may not have a ruler at home, and that's okay. If you do not have a ruler at home, you don't have to go to the store. Now, I actually could not find my ruler, and I had to go to Dollar General. Luckily, it's not too far for me to go to Dollar General, so I went to the dollar store, and this was 50 cents. Now, if you happen to be making, your parents happen to be making a grocery run or running to Dollar General soon, they could pick you one up for 50 cents. Or I'll show you something else we can do to improvise or to use something else instead of a ruler, okay? But I'm going to start off by using this. Alright, you ready? Okay, so once you have all of your things that I needed you to get together for our project, then I want you to take all of your papers, and what I did is I stacked them all up. I've got all 4 pieces of paper, but that way I only have to measure one time instead of measuring 4 different times, okay? So I'm going to stack all of these up, and I'm going to do it, well, remember we call landscape. We're going to do it long ways, okay? So I've got it laying like this on my table, and then I'm going to take my ruler. Now remember, your ruler has 2 sides to it. We have an inch side, and then this side over here is a centimeter side, okay? We're going to use the larger side, the inches, and we're going to go to about 3 inches right over here. We're only going to measure to about 3. Now, I want you to notice this ruler that I picked up from the store has a rounded edge. When we have a rounded edge, we've got to start over here where the 0 starts. Not every ruler. Now, the rulers we used in the classroom were squared at the edge. They looked like the corner of a sheet of paper. They had a perfect square, so it started right at the 0, but this one does not, okay? That's something you always have to think about when you look at your ruler. Does it start right at the edge, or is the 0 over a little bit? So what we're going to do is we're going to come down about 3 inches, okay? I'm going to line up my 0, make sure my paper is all lined up. Line up your 0 with the edge of your paper, and then you're going to come down to the 3, okay? And I'm going to mark where that point is. And then what I always do is I go over to the middle, and I do the same thing. I'm going to line up my 0, and then I'm going to come down to my 3. I'm going to go to the end, line up my 0, come down to my 3, okay? And the reason I do that is I can use my ruler, which gives me a straight, flat edge, and I can play connect the dots and connect all 3 of those lines, and then I have a straight edge, okay? Because you know when I try to draw something straight on the board, I get all wonky and I can't draw a straight line. Now, let's say you did not have a ruler at home, okay? That's all right. I'm still going to show you what you could have done. Now, Lily Grace has something. I tried to kind of guess what size this is. This space, 3 inches, is about, when you put your fingers together, it's going to be about the size of the width of your hand. Okay, so you're looking for something about the size of that. My hand's a little bit bigger than yours, so mine's a little, like, see my pinky's hanging off the paper. But something that was about that size that I found was, I found a game of Lily Grace's, okay, and it's just a couple inches, I think it's an inch or 2 bigger, but I could use this, and maybe if I line them all up the same, as long as I make sure my paper's all lined up, then I could use this. This is something we've been doing. It's been really fun. It's our PE portion of the day. It's a good way for us to exercise and get some moving going on. But I could come down just a little bit. And see, I can kind of put my hand on it. I can tell about right here. Line that up with the paper, and then I can draw my straight edge, okay? If you have a book that's really big, you could use that. I could even use my whiteboard that I had around the house. Just find you some things that have a straight, flat edge and go about the width of your hand, okay? Alright, once you've made your line and you've connected your dots, then we're ready to cut. Okay, I'll put my marker down. Now remember, when you're holding your sheet of paper, to always make sure that your fingers are tucked in so that we don't cut them. And you're going to cut away from you. Always cut away. Okay, I'm just going to follow this trace line. Okay. Now, I don't need this big piece. I'm done with this. I could use this for crafting or something fun later, but I don't need this right now, so I'm just going to move it to the side. Now, I have all 4 of these that I have made in all 4 different colors. Now, yours may not be 4 different colors. That's okay. You didn't have to do that. That was just something that I recommend. Okay, so on our first one, what I want you to do is put 1 over 1 or 1 whole. Now you should be able to kind of guess what we're going to be doing. We did something similar to this in the classroom where we took papers and folded them up and shaded them. This is going to be similar to what we did in class that day, okay? This will just be something for you to keep at home. Okay, now we're going to take our orange one that's next, and I want to make this one into halves. Okay, so what I can do is I can make these corners meet, and then we're going to pinch the end down here and try to keep it straight. When you open it back up, it should have divided it into halves. Okay? So you're going to take your marker. Now, how many pieces make up the whole for this orange sheet? It took me 2 pieces. And then my unit fraction, of course, for each piece is 1 for 1/2. Okay? And I can even cut this in half, so that I can see that 2 of my halves will give me a whole. Okay? Now you kind of see what we're doing. Alright, now I've got my green sheet next, and I'm going to make my halves, just like I did for the orange. And then we're going to fold it one more time, okay? I want to half my halves, okay? And you know what that's going to give me? Remember, how many pieces that make up the whole is my bottom number. And each one is a unit fraction, so this is 1/4. Okay, and then you'll follow those little folds and you can cut these. So now I can see that half of my halves would be 1/4, and it takes 4 of these green ones to make up 1 whole. Okay. Alright, my last one, we're going to do the same thing. You're going to follow those same steps. There's my half. Fold it again, and I have my 1/4. And if I fold it one more time, could you predict what's going to come next? What is half of 1/4? I want you to notice something. When I double my 1, I get a 2. When I double my 2, I get a 4. If I double my 4, what do you think these are going to be? I have created 8s. Okay, so each of these will be an 8. Now remember, if I get to going too fast, you can pause. The wonderful thing about technology, if I get ahead, you get to press pause and catch up as you can. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut these into their sections and see 2/8 make it equal to that 4th. Okay. Okay. Almost done. Okay. A little crooked there. Let me try to get you guys where you can see a little better. Alright, so now I have my 1 whole. I have 2 of my halves, my 4ths, and now I have my 8ths. Let me spread these out. And what you have made is called a unit fraction kit. Okay? And you're going to be using this week. We're going to be looking at these for some problems in your Google Classroom assignment is going to be using these. And then tomorrow's Google Classroom assignment, you'll be using these. And I'll show you tomorrow kind of what we'll do with them. But what I want you to do now is I want us to think about, remember when we talked about comparing and contrasting? We have either greater than, less than, or equal to. Those are the three signs when we're comparing and contrasting our fractions. Now remember I told you to always think of this as an alligator mouth. And you know Miss Walker is not a good drawer, but you kind of get the gist. He's always going to want to eat the bigger number, okay? So this sign wants to eat the biggest number always, okay? Now, my fancy eraser here I have, which is a dishcloth. Okay, now we're going to take, and I want us to compare a couple of these unit fractions. So if I have 1/2 and I have 1/8, which one is greater than the other? I can take this 1/8 and set it on top, and I can tell that it is much smaller than my 1/8. So my 1/2 is going to be larger, okay? What if I take something that's a little bit closer to the same size as another one, and I do 1/4 and 1/2. Remember, my alligator wants to eat the biggest side, so I'm going to line up my 1/2 and my 1/4, and which one is it going to want to eat? The 1/2, okay? Now, one that some people get confused on because they look at this incorrectly is if I take a lot of people look at this one and they get it wrong, okay? 1/1 is the same as 1 whole, okay? So this is a whole. That's one entire piece. I have all of the pieces from my pizza. If I have an 1/8, even though I see 8 in this problem, remember the smaller the denominator, the larger the piece. The bigger the denominator, the smaller the piece, okay? So look at this. Is the 1/8 or the whole bigger? The whole is going to be bigger. 1 whole is bigger. That's having one piece, one entire pizza or a slice of pizza, okay? So don't let that confuse you, okay? Just because there's an 8 in this, that actually means it's smaller because it has a larger denominator, okay? All right, now let's look at one more. Let me erase. Okay, if I have 1/8 and I'm comparing it to a 1/4, which one is my alligator going to want to eat? It's going to want to eat the largest number, which is going to be this fraction. See how I could take the 8 and lay it on top? That's how I know which one is larger, okay? And some guys like to draw pictures. Maybe a picture will help you if this is confusing to you. You could always draw it out where I have a 1/4 and then I have an 1/8. Okay? And see how it would take 2 of these to be equal. Okay? And we're going to talk a little bit more about those equivalent or equal fractions tomorrow. But this should show you kind of, I really like using these, and I can even take the smaller one and put it on top and see that this is a smaller fraction, okay? Okay, so once you finish making your unit fraction kit, what you're going to do is you can stick these in a little Ziploc bag, or if you have a folder at home that you're using, you can stick these in a folder and keep up with them. I like to keep mine in a little Ziploc bag, and you can kind of fold up. I know this one for the 1 whole is kind of large. You can kind of fold it up and stick it inside. But you're going to want to use these this week. We're going to be talking about equivalent fractions, and we're going to be talking about comparing and contrasting those fractions a little bit more. And if you have these, they're going to help you answer these a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, and they'll let you kind of get that visual where you can see why something is true, okay? So I hope you had fun making this with me today. This was all you had to do during your lesson. Now I want you have a Google Classroom assignment where you're going to use these unit fraction numbers and you're going to compare them to each other like we did together. You're going to do those online, and then if you get finished and have some extra free time, you can get on Prodigy. Remember, on Monday nights, we always go over who our top 5 were, all math prodigies. So I hope you're getting on and answering some questions and helping us. If you have any other questions about the lesson or about fractions or anything at all, you can send me a message on Seesaw or Google Classroom. I miss you guys and love you all so much. Bye-bye.